Good morning, fifth graders. Ms. Jagodnik here with the math lesson on coordinate grids. We are now in topic 14. This is lesson 14-2. And this is a quick topic and it's a fun one. I like doing coordinate grids. It's all about just putting points on a graph. And, sometimes you get to make shapes out of it, pictures, use it for mapping or charting data. There's a number of different purposes for it, but today we're just going to focus on how to get those points in the right place. The way you put a point, which of course by that we mean a dot, the way you put a point on a coordinate grid is by using an ordered pair. You have two numbers in parentheses, and all you have to do is follow those numbers to know how many spaces across and how many spaces up to go on the grid. And where that line going up and down and the line going across, crisscross, that's where your point goes. So just to go over a little vocabulary first, a coordinate grid looks like graphing paper, but it has two lines to it. It has one going across, which of course we call horizontally. And it has one going up, which of course we call vertical. The one going across is called the x-axis, and the one going up is called the y-axis. So whenever a problem or a question refers to the x-axis or the y-axis, this never changes. X is side to side, horizontal, and y is up and down, vertical. They meet in a corner, and that corner is 0. So if you have a 0 in the first number of your ordered pair or a 0 in the second number of your ordered pair, that tells you that I am staying right on the axis. So if it tells me to go 0 sideways, I continue right here on this line. If it tells me to go 0 up and down, I continue on this line, and we'll see an example of that later on to help you. Okay. And when I have an ordered pair, the first number in the pair always tells me how to go on the x-axis. That's easy. X comes before y. So when you're doing the ordered pair, the x-axis side to side comes first, and then the second number tells you how far up to go on the y-axis. So let's take a look at the questions that you have in the guided practice on page 785. The first two questions ask you to think about how the ordered pair system works and to explain some things. And then we have some examples of points to put on the grid. Number 1, Natalie is graphing point T. There's my ordered pair, 1, 8. So I know this 1 represents the x-axis and this 8 represents the y-axis. That means this 1 tells me how many spaces over to move, and this 8 tells me how many spaces up to move. So when the question says, should she move over 8 or up 8, I look and see, oh, the 8 is second. First I go over, then I go up. So up 8 would be the correct answer. And my explanation could be something like, because 8 is the second number in the pair, or the ordered pair, it tells me to go 8 spaces up, or if we want to use our vocabulary, which is always a good idea, on the y-axis. Okay? Number 2 asks me to do a step-by-step, decide or describe how you graph the point CD. Notice they're using variables now, getting you ready for algebra. CD using 2-letter variables just means it doesn't matter which number it is. Any number, comma, any number is an ordered pair. And I always follow the same steps. So the first thing I would do is move, whatever that number is, C spaces over on the x-axis. And then secondly, I would do move D, whatever that number is, spaces up on the y-axis. Then I just put and label my points. So I put my dot and I label it whatever they tell me to label. Okay, now we'll get to follow those steps right down here to put 4 points on the coordinate grid, and then you should be really good to go and try the independent pages because this is the same thing every time you put a point on the grid. Okay, so my first point I want to put on the grid is labeled point E. That's just the letter they gave it, its name. And it's ordered pair 1, 3. So again, I know this one is X going sideways and this one is Y going up. So I'm going to move 1 space over on the x-axis. So instead of 0, I'm going to be at 1. And I'm going to move 3 spaces up on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put my point right here, where this line going up from the 1 crisscrosses this line going across from the 3. And that is point E. It's at 1 over 3 up. Okay, easy enough. Number 4, I want to put point F at 4, 4. Again, that's 4 over, 4 up. Oh, but this could be easier because since they're identical, it really doesn't matter. So 4 over and 4 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's my point. There's the line coming up from the 4, the line coming across from the 4. That is clearly point F at 4, 4. Done. Okay, G is at 5, 2. Okay, so I'm going to go 5 over on the x-axis to up on the y-axis. So I'm going to go over to the 5 and then up to the 2. Here we go. Here's point G, 5, 2. Okay. Now here's the one that can be a little tricky because it includes a 0. So 0 means I'm not moving at all in one of the directions. I am staying on the axis. So if I have something like 0, 2, okay, for point H, that means I am going 0 spaces sideways. That means I am sitting right here on this line. I'm not going over to the 1 or anywhere over here. I'm staying on the line. And I'm going 2 spaces up, so I'm still going to go up to the 2. This point, point H, is going to be right on the axis, right on the line at the edge of the grid. I know that seems like it's out of bounds, but it's not. It's part of the grid. So you can put a point on there. So there's point H, 0, 2. I did not move over at all. I stayed at start, but I went up 2 because the second number in the pair was 2 on the y-axis. Okay, so let me just do one example because those are tricky. This is not in your book at all, but I want to do one example of the other way. So let's make up an ordered pair that might have 0 as the second number. Seems, like I might want to do point I because we do seem to be going in alphabetical order. Let's say point I is 8, 0. Now let's say I want to put point I on the grid at 8, 0. This is the opposite of what we just did. It tells me that I need to go over 8 spaces, but I don't need to go up at all. So here I would stay right here. I would move over 8 like normal, but instead of going up whatever my spaces in the second number were, I don't go up at all. I put this point right here sitting on the x-axis. Again, not out of bounds, part of the grid. That means I went 0 spaces up. So this is point I, 8, 0. Okay. So now you've had an example of the 2 trickiest kinds, the one that have a 0 either in the first or second number of the ordered pair, and you have to sit right on the x-axis or you have to stay right on the y-axis at the edge of the grid. Okay, so just make sure when you're doing the rest of your independent pages and of course your practice buddy that you're not mixing those up, that you remember first you go across, then you go up, and double check your work. Okay, enjoy this lesson.